Hello, Farming Secrets community and soil lovers. We're here today for another Let's Talk Soil. We're joined by Michael. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. So share with our community and all our soil lovers who you are and what you get up to.
I am located in Southwest Ohio, so I'm kind of central U.S. I started in 2003, started a farm with my brother, so we ran that for a decade. Then we moved to Ohio here. My wife and I got married, and we started a company called Growing Farmers, which we have a Thriving Farmer podcast. We do courses and trainings to farmers all about using the business and marketing side of farming. That's where we focus. And we recently bought a farm here ourselves, an 8-acre farm that my wife and I and our 2 kids live on now. So that's kind of me in literally 30 seconds.
Love it. You nailed it. And I've been listening to your content, your Thriving podcast, your growing material that you've been producing. You've even got a Facebook group. And I love the content that you're producing and how much you share learning out loud. And that's why I wanted to reach out and continue the conversation. I know you've run summits and we've run summits. So we do a lot of similar things and we're in different parts of the world and excited to kind of bridge that gap and share what you guys are doing there and what we're doing over here in our education space as well. But Michael, what does soil mean to you?
This is a great question because right now in the U.S. over the last couple of years, there's been a massive push toward the hydroponic or soilless growing. And unfortunately, you can be certified organic and be a soilless grower in like a hydroponic system. And, the more we learn about the soil biology, the soil chemistry, the soil just life that's down in there, we realize that everything that we do comes from the soil, is based in the soil. And the whole mycorrhizae network and just the complexity that's under our feet. And so the more I learn about that, the more I realize that soil is the essence of life. And without soil, our world would grind to a halt. A lot of people talk about how these new systems, let's say the hydroponics, are more efficient, but let's say we lost our energy inputs. What's going to happen is those are going to turn into, just going to degrade, while the soil is going to continue to give life year after year after year. And that, to me, is why that whole soil ecosystem, just the soil world, is so important.
I love that. And here we have another person saying that soil is life. That has been one of the most common answers when I ask that question. And it is the true meaning of everything on this planet. And I love the fact that so many more people are researching this and realizing that some of the world's solutions are right under our feet. And the link between the food, nutrition, and our gut biome, and then the mental health and our mental state is just, no pun intended, but groundbreaking. And it gets me excited to be part of this movement. What got you interested in soil and getting onto land? And I know you leased for a little bit and then you bought your own farm. What sparked that interest?
Yeah, so when we started farming in upstate New York, we started in the soil, and because we were land poor, but we had a lot of ideas. So my parents had an 8-acre piece of property. We maxed that out, and then over the last couple of years, we rented 6 different properties, and we realized is because we were on so many different pieces of property, and we started on so many pieces, that we realized the soil was such a key aspect of how things were growing. We could use the same fertilizer, the same lime, the same seed, but on those 6 different pieces of property, everyone would grow differently. And we realized that it was because of the quality of the soil. And with that kind of land, it allowed us to do some really fun variations with, the cover crop regime, or just like tilling it too soon and messing the soil up. And then realizing that we were like, oh, we did something wrong there, and having to regenerate that soil and get it back to good soil health. So being able to do that on with so many different trials and replications allowed us to very easily realize that the soil is where it's at. And when our soil is right and our soil is balanced, our crop is just literally going to spring right up. And we don't have to really worry about trying to deal with pesticides and herbicides and because of the bugs and weeds.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so amazing that you've had this ability to monitor 8 different parcels of land and create your own research. It's almost like a bit of an experiment. And so that makes me really interested with your knowledge and the ability to observe all these different parcels of land. Do you feel like you can now look at the ground or look at a parcel of land and what would signify healthy soil? Like, is there a key element?
Yeah, well, the tilth. A lot of it's the tilth, being able to put your hands down in it. And if you don't have, like, let's say I'm on a brand new piece of property and it's covered with pasture, some of the times it's too tough to get in there. But if you just pull the vegetation back and really start looking at the top of the soil, you'll see the moisture level, you'll see the worm castings, you'll see the soil life, you'll see the diversity of plants in it. And when we see more diversity of plants and the type of plants in there, the type of weeds we're looking at, some weeds like Canadian thistle, it is going to be on compacted ground. And so we can instantly tell that. Goldenrod, usually a little bit of a heavier soil, but goldenrod loves fertility. So we'll be able to tell that it is a fertile soil, even though it may be a little bit heavier. So looking at that kind of things really helps us doing that. But also, if we get a shovel, then we can get into the soil, and then we can start just feeling it, smelling it. I know some farmers that taste their soil. I haven't quite gotten there. I don't feel like I'm, that kind of radical yet, but I'll probably get there in my older age.
Yeah, I love that. And it's so amazing to hear your story and bringing that back to, I guess it's like those touching, those feeling, the smell, they're bringing it back to the senses, the gifts that we're born with. There are no complicated soil tests and analysis. It's some of the signs are really obvious, and we're born with the ability to visually look at something. And that's one of the things that I've noticed in our regen journey and speaking to a lot of farmers is that art of that's been lost is just observing the land, seeing how the ecosystem works, and the ability to look at a plant and know that it's not a weed, but it's a signal sign to tell you what's actually going on. I saw a post on the internet the other day, which it was like all these brand logos and then all these leaf shapes. And it was just like interesting how everyone could, join the dots to which shape equals a logo and a brand, but no one knows the patterns of leaves or plants anymore. And that was just like one of those wow moments for me where I was like, damn, this hit the heartstrings, something so simple that kids should just learn shapes of plants and what those mean is now lost because we live in this, corporate world. So what are some of the things that you do on your farm? I'm excited to hear your journey and know what you grow and how you've made this happen.
Yeah, so it's been really cool, Ray, that this year we bought a new farm. And it was a lot of work. I've had that side conversation. We can talk about that for a long time. But what has been really important to me is because it's a brand new soil, it's a brand new farm, that I've really worked my hardest this year to get our soil in the right shape. When we got on the farm, it was just corn, leftover corn, basically trash. And the year before, the previous year, they'd sprayed 11 different herbicides on the property because, again, and we just have an out of control dependency on chemicals. And so I've got some slides here that I can just kind of walk you through exactly how we manage the farm this season to kind of just give you a quick run through.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'd love to kind of show that. Yeah, so let me go ahead and share, and then I'll show you some of the things that we ended up seeing because of so this is what the farm looked like this spring. You can see the old corn stalks there, but you can see at the base of that too, there's a lot of annual weeds. And so these are things like creeping Charlie. There's also a ton of chickweed, which we realize is always going to be on ground, usually like this. But the good thing about this is when we looked at the soil level top, we realized that there was a lot of earthworm casting. So even though this was been, kind of not managed well and our potassium was too low, that the soil life was still relatively there. So we did a couple things with this. This is another picture from the top of the house. See that? This is what we did is we came in and had to obviously turn in those corn stalks because the goal was to put a cover crop on the whole property. So we wanted to turn that under. So we actually ended up cultivating this 4 different times. And every time I did it, I was inward cringing because I hate to actually till soil. That's, it's awful to do that. But what I also knew is that I had an incredibly high weed bank. We had about 8 to 12 different types of weeds on that farm, and some weeds that I'd never actually seen before. And I'll show you a picture of one. But some of the nasty ones too, like nut sedge, Johnson grass, and we had a lot of bindweed and a new one for me, which was vine milkweed. So those four are like perennial, just nasty weeds. And so we knew we had to get those out of there so that in the following years, we weren't going to be constantly faced with that. So we were willing to burn some organic matter and do more tillage in the first year because we knew the long term would be so much farther along. So what we did is we also brewed.
I just wanted to walk you.
Sorry about that. But we basically made our own homemade compost tea kind of dribbler. I did a podcast with Nicole Masters, and you know her, and she was talking about dribbling on the compost tea to get the soil life back up. So we made this, brewed a whole bunch, put it in a 275-gallon tote on top of a little wagon, towed it around the entire farm, and dribbled on the compost tea so that we could get some really good soil life going in there as well. So we did that. And then this was the test. So we tested the soil because of the 11 herbicides. We weren't sure if we could actually get anything to grow. And so what we did was throw some oats and peas out there, and we did get some of them to germinate. So we're like, okay, that means that all of those herbicides have flushed through the soil profile enough for us. So that's what we did there to test that. This was, again, you can see those weeds still coming back again and again. This was another shot of the weeds. So again, incredible pressure. And so this is some of the things we use is some just flat duck feet to kind of just cultivate the soil. This was calibrating the fertilizer things. We did put down organic fertilizer and lime. So we had to calibrate that. And the easiest way to do that when you have a thing is to lay down a sheet that you know the size of. And then you basically run the seeder right over that or the spreader right over that. And then you basically gather that all up, put it in a bucket and weigh the amount that you actually dropped. And then you adjust the spreader based on that. So, you have the gate and say, oh, it's 45 pounds. You don't actually know until you go in the actual speed through the field. So this is how we do that.
Oh, that's a good tip. I love that.
Yeah. This is seeding. So again, this equipment's expensive. This is like a $60,000 piece of equipment for just the seeder. So we hired it out. It was $350 for us to have this guy come in and seed all the acreage for us. And he, again, carries all the liability. He comes on when I tell him to. We do it. He's a great guy. And then I'm done. And so being able to have that kind of equipment and just being able to find someone in the community. It took a while. It took a couple of weeks to find the right person. But once we did, he's now done it twice for us, and it's been incredibly helpful to have that resource. This is it coming right up. And what we did, Ray, is we did a 6-way cover crop mixture. Again, we messed it up. We should have done it slightly different. And actually, if you go to our Facebook or YouTube channel, you'll see a video I did on the mistakes I made with that. So folks can go check that out.
What a great way to learn, though,
oh gosh, yes. I know exactly what to change next year to make it so much better. This is it coming up a little bit further. And then it skips a little bit. Here's another picture. And then we've got the buckwheat in there with the bees on it. I mean, how exciting is that? The soil life just came back. And then obviously when the soil life comes back, you have the animal life coming back. This is, you can see again, I don't have some good pictures up close, but you can see now it's reached about 5 feet tall. And we actually started tilling under some sections. So this is a section that's actually right now in strawberries. And there, that's the cover crop there, sunflowers. Now, the thing about this cover crop, Ray, is we monetized it. So we actually grew sunflowers as a predominant species on purpose so that we could invite people out to take pictures and to learn about our new farm. So we did a lot of that. We actually paid for the seed and the tillage and the guy who came out and seeded it with the people that came out for the sunflowers. So
amazing. What a great model. That's just so smart. That's working smarter, not harder. And I just can't wait for people to hear some more of the way that you've done this, because I think this conversation could be an hour conversation just on the smartness that you've done, hiring the equipment and getting people to come to the farm and learn and start the conversation with them about how you're farming. This is just, music to my ears.
Yeah. So this then right here was taking that cover crop down. So as soon as the sunflowers kind of faded away, we had that same no-till drill come back in and literally it laid it down, chopped it up, and actually seeded in rye and clover for the wintertime. So you saw that there. This is what it looks like last week or the week before. So It's amazing. I mean, that cover crop layer is literally a mat on top of the soil. And we were able to, again, it chopped it right through, laid the seed in there, took a nice good rain, it popped right up. And that's where we are with the cover crop right now. And next spring, we'll let different sections go to different heights, but a lot of it will get tilled under in early spring to add cover back to the soil. But again, it's made a big difference in our crop quality. This is some beets we grew that look pretty good. They actually came out really nice. And I wanted to show you this, because this is actually a weed. This was that milkweed vine weed. And look at all the aphids that are literally parasiticizing or just destroying it. We were super excited to see some of those pests start to come and move in on some of the different weeds out there. I remember a great farmer, Claus Martins, out of Western New York, who does, 3,000 acres of organic row crops. He was talking to me about how he's seen on velvet leaf, which is a nasty weed up there and just across the eastern part of the U.S. He was showing us some parasite or basically some aphids and different bugs that were eating them. And he says what happens is when you get your soil balanced, the weeds can't compete. And so the pests come in and start eating the weeds instead of your crop. So yeah, that was just a few slides. I just want to share our summer journey, and it's been great to see the soil quality just increase and the worm activity. So it's great to now see the worms just coming to the surface and just starting to cycle all those nutrients back to the soil and pull down the cover crop into the soil. So
amazing, Michael. Thank you so much for taking us on that virtual tour of your farm. It was amazing to see those photos. And I think, you would have had an amazing time being there physically and just seeing all that unfold. One of the points I want to talk about is the fact that you had to till even though you didn't want to. And I think that's such an important lesson, because when you learn a tactic, you have knowledge about it, but there are some times where you just need to put the values that you believe in aside and go, this is actually going to be the best thing right now for a delayed gratification.
Yeah.
And I find so many farmers who decide to go regen just completely go cold turkey, and that doesn't necessarily always set you up for success. And I love that your journey takes you through, and the fact that you had to cringe through that exercise. Kudos to you for showing that and being brave, because some people shy away and go, oh, here's our results, but they don't talk about the journey that they had to till, or they had to do something that wasn't so regen or permaculture principles. And so I love that. Really appreciate it.
Well, Ray, we're on, as you said, a journey, and to get where we want to be with the soil just teeming with microbes, there's got to be some steps. And so that's what we're doing, is we're just kind of working through those different steps. A lot of farmers, a lot of the small scale vegetable farmers want to go no-till. But you can't start that way. You've got to work the soil towards that, because it takes a lot of balancing to get your calcium, magnesiums right, and just the soil health so that's active enough to be able to make that work. And so, we've got to do some stuff we don't like to do right now, but we know in the long term it's going to make, literally we can drive our vehicle right after rain, right on top of the field now, because there's so much armor on that soil. We had 2.5 inches of rain in less than 12 hours, less than 20, maybe 24 hours, and there wasn't a puddle on the field. And you could walk right over anywhere you wanted. You weren't sinking in the mud because, again, you had that armor over the entire farm.
Amazing. So great. And thank you for sharing that. Before we wrap up, because I think we could speak for hours, but I just want you to leave the audience and soil lovers thinking about a particular topic. What would be your last thought that you'd like everyone thinking about?
Yeah, one of the things that has been so key for us is soil tests. This spring we did one when we first got access to the property, and then we made a soil plan off that. We talked to a couple different soil consultants about it, and then we ended up putting the mix on that they recommended, and that has been so key for us. Is just because it's one thing to walk out there and look at the soil, but it's another thing to actually have the biology and the chemistry of it, be able to see where our soil is headed. So often I get farmers that say, this is having problems, this is having my problems. So where's the soil test? It's like, I didn't do one last year or this year. I'm like, you're flying blind. Yeah. Do the soil test. And if you can find a company that can do more of a soil life soil test, and there's some companies in the US that are starting to do those, get those, because that's going to give you a better picture.
Absolutely. And you know, there are some labs here in Australia as well that are doing really good analysis and so get that soil test and having the benchmark and then seeing, because you can't manage what you can't measure. You know, it's an old marketing kind of thing, but it also relates to everything in life. And so that is really important, because you could be doing a lot of work and you might not see the physical signs, and then you do a soil test and you're like, wow, look at what's improved. And so you might feel deflated that it's not working, but really what we can't see is working, you know, 10-fold or 100-fold. So I love that tip, and a great thought to leave the audience with. Michael, if anyone wants to hang out more with you, because I think you just ooze with all this information, how can they hang out with you more?
Yes. So I give people a couple different options. Obviously, our Thriving Farmer podcast is a great way to get a weekly dose of inspiration from me, and then usually a great guest farmer. Follow us, growingfarmers.com has a lot of great resources. But if you just want to get me down and dirty with what's going on, just follow me on Facebook.
Awesome. There will be the links around the video. Our rockstar Regen Bella will get that sorted for us. But Michael, it's been absolutely a blast hanging out with you today. I think we need to have more chats and possibly get you on a webinar and continue the conversation, because your journey is the missing piece that I would love to just share. And, you know, I know that you've set up other educational products. And so you're like walking the walk, talking the talk, and living the life that a lot of aspiring farmers dream of. And I'm just so grateful to have met you and been able to hang out with you over the last few months and years and the future.
All right, Ray. It was great to chat with you as always. I get pumped up by your enthusiasm, so I appreciate it.
And likewise, you know, I can't stop smiling. People will see it, but if you could hear it as well, this has been awesome. So, soil lovers and farming secrets community, until next time, remember to get your hands dirty and start digging deeper into your soils.